I'm David Lombardo, and this is WCNY's The Capitol Press Room. On today's show, we're getting to know real estate attorney George Dobbins, the GOP candidate vying for a red assembly seat in the Rochester suburbs. Welcome to the show, George, and congrats on your primary victory in June.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's been about a decade since you ran a state Senate campaign in the area. So what made you want to jump back into the deep end of politics with a bid for the assembly? I mean, was it something you were always interested in and now just saw an opening with the incumbent assembly member retiring, or did you have to get cajoled into running for this seat?
When I ran Brian Mantelo's campaign 10 years ago, I was 21, just coming out of college. And yeah, I guess at the time I thought this would be great, something that I'd be very interested in somewhere down the line. But in the last decade, I went to law school. I've had a very good career here. I live in Lyons, which is in Wayne County, and I commute into the city of Rochester every day to work as an attorney. I've built a good career here. I've got a lot of friends. I married my high school sweetheart. We both grew up in Lyons. We've got a daughter, and so things were on a different trajectory. And then Brian announced that he wasn't running again. And he did that at our Republican caucus in Wayne County, the county Republican caucus in January. And I'm a member of the Republican committee in Wayne County. And I had some people approach me and say, we think you'd be really good for this. It took some convincing with my wife, for sure. My family, but, my wife has been supportive. My family's been very supportive. And this is a few decades earlier than I thought I might do something like this. But, you strike when the iron's hot.
Well, what is it about serving in the assembly, disrupting your life, that is appealing to you?
Well, there's a lot of things. I think that first of all, just on a statewide level, it's a now or never. I think we're at a crossroads in the state. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative guy, and I don't think that things are going in the right direction, and I don't think they're going to get any better unless serious change happens. And I felt like, I'm a Teddy Roosevelt fan, and the I like the man in the arena speech, right? It's not the critic who counts. It felt like, well, I can't complain unless I get involved. Um, and also I felt like, and I think talking to Brian and seeing how Brian did his job, that there's a lot of, you can get a lot of meaning out of a job like this. You can kind of be a cheerleader for your district, which is something that's very appealing to me. The pancake breakfasts and the parades that a lot of people might think are burdens are things that I enjoy. I think that meeting people is fun. That's my favorite part of my job right now is meeting with clients, getting to know, how they, how they run their business, why they run their business, where they want to be 5 years from now. And that's something I want to take into this job as well. Learning about what I don't know in the district and the people that I don't know. And that's what is appealing to me.
Well, this is historically a pretty safe Republican seat, but you only won a plurality of the primary vote, and you're likely facing a blue wave in the fall, though it's unclear what the magnitude of that wave actually will look like. Given that backdrop, what is your messaging this fall in order to hold your base together without potentially alienating moderate or independent voters?
Sure. I think the message is pretty simple. Do you think the state's going in the right direction? And who is running the state right now? We have a super majority of Democrats in the state assembly. We have a Democratic governor, and the sense that I get, having talked to hundreds of people through the primary, is they don't think that the state is going in the right direction. Now, the interesting thing about this upcoming general election for me too is that there's a very good chance that there will be a three-way race. The Democrats also had a primary that was within, I think, about 50 votes. And from what I'm hearing, the gentleman who lost that Democratic primary in the 130th district is very strongly considering running. Now, I don't know how advisable that would be from a political, perspective. This is a solidly red district, and splitting a Democratic already, smaller Democratic voting base would not be what I would choose to do. But there's a good chance that I'll be running against two Democrats instead of one.
Given your experience in real estate development and as an attorney, what do you think the state could be doing to increase the pace of new housing construction? And has anything been done in recent years, including this past legislative session in the context of the budget, that you think moves the needle, or has it mostly been window dressing?
I think a lot of it is window dressing. I really do. I mean, at the end of the day, the housing issue in New York is a supply issue, right? And a lot of the suggestions that we see, particularly from the far left, are demand solutions, right? So rent control, providing additional loans for folks to buy. That doesn't help if there's no housing supply. And I work with a lot of housing developers. I work with guys that actually do of all sizes and all across New York. And it really comes down to just the burden of regulations. It comes down to environmental reviews. It comes down to working with utility companies and ensuring that there can be a hookup. It comes down to the cost of supplies, sales taxes, mortgage taxes. I mean, every tax you can think of will increase the price of a home in New York and make it harder for a housing developer, particularly the mom and pop shops, where the margins are a lot smaller, from even starting a project. And one of the most important things to me is that we see more single family housing built in this district and across upstate New York. I mean, my district specifically, because that's who I'm going to represent. But when it comes to economics, we know that if supply goes up, then prices will, at least level out. Because we're seeing, my district is Wayne County and the town of Webster. Webster is a very large town. That's where Xerox is based, and it has been very developed. But for the most part, my district, Wayne County, is very poor and very rural. And despite that, we're seeing, housing prices double. I mean, where I grew up in Lyons, you didn't see a house above $100,000 15 years ago. Now, every house that sells is, 200, 250,000 easily, right? And people are having a hard time adjusting to that. And it makes it very difficult for if a young family wants to move back, for them to afford a house. And I want to see more young families move back. So that's one of my huge priorities is housing.
Well, before we move on, let me reintroduce you for listeners just joining us. This is WCNY's The Capitol Press Room, and we're speaking with George Dobbins, a real estate attorney and GOP candidate for the 130th Assembly District, an open seat in the Rochester suburbs. You made a point to single out single-family housing in particular. Why that as opposed to duplexes or apartment buildings? Is there a reason why you think
Sure.
that should be what's prioritized?
Sure. No, and that's a good question. So duplexes and apartment buildings have their place, and that it certainly contributes to housing supply, right? And so that keeps prices down or level. But I also think that part of the American dream is owning your own home, right? And people that buy their home have skin in the game. They're invested in the community, and so we want to encourage, housing supply growth across, all spectrums, apartments, duplexes. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but single family housing, because that I think is, when you think about a younger generation of people my age who are starting families, what is their goal eventually to own? If you ask them, it's single family housing, and that's a category that is in short supply, or not. I should say, not high enough supply.
And when you think about the barriers to developing housing, a few years ago, the governor led an effort to essentially supersede some of the restrictive zoning in municipalities, something she backed off of pretty quickly once the state legislature on both sides of the aisle raised the red flag. From your perspective, is that something that should be revisited? Do local zoning make it harder to develop housing projects that developers are actually interested in doing?
I think, every single that's every single different municipality, there's a different answer there, right? I think that it's the job of the developer to convince a uh, local community that
Hmm.
the project is worthwhile. I am a pro home rule person. I think that, uh, as a small government person, in my philosophy, the local government is the most important. That's the thing that should have the most control. And so I wouldn't say that we should encourage any statewide mandate to give the authority to the governor to enforce any kind of statewide mandate on local municipalities. I think that's the wrong way to go.
How far does that support for home rule go? Because we also have some, say, liberal municipal leaders, like in New York City or in Ulster County, where they're considering doing a local income tax surcharge. So, are you an absolutist when it comes to home rule, or are there areas where you feel like the state or federal government should be telling municipalities, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that?
I'm not an absolutist in anything.
Okay.
And I mean, you said additional. Well, they already have additional income taxes in New York City,
Sure,
right?
which they're allowed to
And
do, but
a
Ulster County
local.
never had anything like that before.
I mean, it seems foolish to me. I mean, the ultimate judge of a project like that has to be the local voters, right? I, I would think that that would make Ulster County a lot less attractive a place to live. But I mean, what if there was a Republican governor? I don't know. Don't necessarily think that it would be good politics or good, governmental philosophy to go in and dictate that they can't do something like that.
Well, a lot of Republican candidates and elected officials talk about having a voter ID law, something that is not required to vote on Election Day in New York, although you do need one to register. Your campaign website says you support "quote unquote" reasonable voter ID requirements. What does that look like to you in practice?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me why we wouldn't require an ID to vote. Um, I don't necessarily believe that it needs to be like a passport or but my understanding is now every new driver's license or ID that's issued from a DMV is already a real ID. So that something like that. And I know plenty of people, even people out in Wayne County who do not have cars, who have government issued IDs. It seems silly to me every time you go in to vote that all you have to do is put your signature next to your previous signature, and usually that signature is one that you first scrawled when you were 18 years old. And I don't know about anybody else, but my signature now looks a lot after 10 years as an attorney. It looks a lot less. It doesn't look anything like what I used to do when I was 18. And that's it. And then people say, okay, there you go. You're ready to vote. I think that a government issued ID to show when you show up to vote is a completely reasonable requirement.
Well, we've been speaking with George Dobbins. He is a real estate attorney and the Republican candidate for the 130th Assembly District, an open seat in the Rochester suburbs. George, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's edition of the Capitol Press Room. For an insider take on what's happening in state government, check out our Dispatches from Planet Albany show, available wherever you get podcasts or at capitolpressroom.org.
Join us again for Capitol Press Room, a production of WCNY Connected, Syracuse.